Howdy folks, StretchLs here, and welcome back to World of Tanks. I have another scouting game on a city map to show you guys today. This time we are in the T49, the Tier 8 American Scout Tank, on Himmelsdorf North Spawn Encountered. Now, like I said in my last video, kind of the reason that I'm doing this is because several of you guys comment on my videos from time to time that you would like to see more gameplay of scouts playing on maps that aren't really conducive to traditional scout gameplay, corridor maps, city maps, that kind of thing. And my overall thought on how you should play those kind of maps in general is don't try to be the frontline tank or the spearhead tank, which is kind of difficult because usually the maps are very restrictive. They force you to play in a certain kind of area. And generally what I like to try and do is support my teammates with whatever they're doing, right? Which sometimes ends up bad when they are maybe too passive and they're sitting too far back. Or they're being overly aggressive and pushing ahead without any other support besides yourself. But you don't really have any other options, because if you try to be proactive yourself on a lot of these restrictive corridor city maps, generally what happens is that you get caught out. With these maps, there's a lot of predetermined firing lanes, right? Because for instance, the 3 line here and the 7-8 line banana road right here, and the traditional brawling area here on top of the hill here. The enemy already knows where the fight's going to be, right? And so if you're being proactive and aggressive in these areas, they're already pre-aimed and they're ready to shoot whoever peeks and pokes, right? So you don't have any armor in scouts usually. And you don't have a lot of hit points compared to other tanks of the same tier of matchmaking. So what I try to do in scout tanks on these kind of maps is I try to get what vision I can on these maps, right? So don't throw in the whole towel when you get a city map or a corridor map, right? Sometimes there are limited opportunities to get some spots on the enemy at the beginning of the game. And if there are, go ahead and try and take them. Himmelsdorf is a really good example, right? Like if on standard mode you can rush down the center street here and then peel off on your horizontal street, and you can spot enemies on their vertical center street here. You can sit on the 3 line corners here in either D3 and G3 and look down the 3 line and see enemy tanks that are dispersing over to the rail tracks and the west side of the map. Or you can even play over here on the 1-2 lines as long as you have enough support and spot enemy tanks that are sitting back here in the corners. And of course, everyone knows how the crossfire works from the hill and into the horizontal streets. The outside of the hill along the E9 and F9 area can look down into these horizontal D-line streets and G-line streets right here. And if you sit here on these corners, you can spot enemy tanks that move around the outside of the castle on top of the hill. So there are a few spotting options on Himmelsdorf. So when you're playing on these kinds of maps, don't give up trying to get any kind of vision at all. Do what you can for vision, but usually what you end up doing is being more of a supporting flanker and damage dealer for your team. So on Encounter, and even on standard mode, I really don't like going to the hill in a scout. I know the hill is a strategical key important area, but it doesn't really work for a scout because you just don't have armor and you don't have hit points. And the tanks that you'll be fighting up against are basically at point blank range from you, and they won't miss, and you just don't have the hit points and usually the firepower to trade well. And of course you can get shot down from below from these horizontal streets like I was saying earlier. So what I like to do in a scout, even with me being as high tier in this matchmaking like this, is I like to try and get some vision down the 3-line street here like this. We don't spot anyone here because of how this road curves a little bit to the outside. You can move up, and the building in front of me is actually protecting me from the enemy tanks that might be sitting down here in H3. So I move up, and you can peek into this G5, G6 area and see if any enemy tanks are sitting here. Now I'm just waiting for enemy tanks to start moving around the outside of the castle area. Get an okay shot into the side of the IS-3 there. Wish I would have had a higher damage roll, only 300. But the IS-3 has a lot of spaced armor on the side with its tracks and just above its tracks, so the spaced armor absorbed a lot of the damage. Now I'm waiting for a good shot on this Rebel Arize, because I know that if I'm able to land a shot here, I can most likely penetrate his side armor or rear armor. Didn't lead the shot quite enough, but luckily the shot still hit him in time, and we were able to smack him in the side for over 900 damage. So pretty good start to the game so far. And I'm trying to help my teammates as they're getting overwhelmed here on the outside of the castle. The enemy team has pushed a lot of tanks up onto the hill. Unfortunately missed that shot, and we've already downed a couple tanks compared to the enemy, which is not good. And our teammates here need to be thinking about falling back and running back over here to the rail tracks right away, not recognizing that the enemy team basically sent their entire team up onto the hill. Also, our Emil 1 put himself in a really bad position. He committed himself all the way down here in F0 past the center of the castle without knowing where the enemy tanks were first. That's a really, really bad thing to do. And now we are behind, well, we were behind 5 tanks there for a moment, but now we're down 4. And now our mediums are doing something really bad here. They think that they can cap in time before the enemy comes off the hill and comes back over here. It takes a decent amount of time to cap, and I just don't think that there's enough time, especially with the enemy T-54 sitting down here. He can peek around his building down here in this corner and reset these mediums whenever he wants to. And we unexpectedly run into the T-54 lightweight. Trying to aim my shot carefully there and get his soft rear armor so I get a penetrating shot with my HE, and we're able to hit him for 800. In a really, really bad position here, but I figured, well, I don't have much other choice. My mediums are not being helpful at all. They're just still sitting here on the cap, thinking that we can win by capping. The T-54 29 medium tank completely ignored me, and I was able to get a nice penetrating shot into the back of his engine block. And then finally the Batchat on my team supported me and killed the T-54 lightweight. So I played that too aggressively. I should have posted up here in K2 and shot them, and I basically put myself at the mercy of both the T-54 and the T-54 lightweight when I moved up that aggressively. Cheeky shot there with the derp gun, trying to loop my shell around the fence and clip the side of the T-29. Remember, when you're shooting high explosive, any destructible object, like a destructible house or a fence or a brick wall or anything like that, will actually eat and stop your high explosive shells, even with your derp tanks. So that's something that you need to be thinking about whenever you're aiming at targets with the T49 or the KV2 or tanks like that. Now it's kind of in a mode where I'm just trying to do what I can while the game's still going. Unexpectedly run into the Oni here, ignoring him and trying to secure the kill on the T25AT. And finally the Oni pulls forward. At first I thought the Oni was actually trying to protect the T25AT as he was pulling forward, but I think he just did that unwittingly as he was pushing and attacking our Leopard PTA. And of course, because our mediums just sat here in the cap zone and let themselves get flanked, the enemy tanks came off the hill and wrapped around and slaughtered our mediums. Get a nice tracking shot on the Super Pershing there, and luckily he either didn't have a fire extinguisher or had already used his fire extinguisher during the course of the battle. And even though we didn't get a penetrating hit on him during the course there, as we were shooting into his tracks, we lit him on fire and he burned the rest of the way to death, so that was nice. So right now I'm just doing what I can while I'm still alive. This game was a loss about 4 or 5 minutes ago. Basically, when the enemy team was spotted, clearly sent most of their tanks up here onto the hill, and the rest of our team really didn't react to it, and they chose to just sit in the cap zone, and instead of pushing out the side of the map and then taking up crossfire positions. For some weird reason, the M103 thought that I would be over here to the south, even though he had spotted me crossing this gap. So he was facing the wrong way, and I was able to shoot into the back of him. But the enemy team are capping, and they have 3 people on cap, and they end up winning the game that way, of course, as it's 100%. So I was able to do over 5,000 damage in this game, despite it being a kind of a bad loss. So unfortunately, we do lose this game. Maybe I could have helped my mediums cap, and we might have won the game that way with having an extra person on cap. But I don't really think that we had enough time to cap before the enemy came off the hill, and I don't think it would have mattered with me trying to help my mediums cap faster, because eventually I think another medium ended up sitting on the cap, so there was 3 on the cap already after a little bit. But the T54 and the T54 lightweight were sitting down here in J1 and in K1, and they were able to reset our mediums any time that they wanted. So that's kind of why I went really proactive and aggressive down here in the southwest corner, as I was trying to kill out these 2 tanks. And maybe we would have a chance of winning if our mediums use their mobility to flex around the map and find isolated tanks and kill them out. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. So you can't win them all. But back to what I was saying earlier before we started the game about how you play your role as a scout on a city map or a corridor map. Generally, you aren't going to be playing as much of a significant spotter and vision role on these maps, because the maps are much more restrictive on the places that you can drive. The distances between engagement areas is much shorter. Generally, it's only 100 meters to 200 meters, and sometimes not even that, so it's very, very close. So your camo rating usually doesn't mean a whole lot on these kinds of maps. So what usually you end up doing is reacting to what your teammates are doing, where your teammates positioning themselves, and then position yourself in a way where you can support your teammates if they get pushed by the enemy. And then that way, if the enemy tank decides he wants to attack your teammate, he'll not only get shot by your teammate, but he'll also get shot by you, and that way you can help your team. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough in this game. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this derpy game in the T49 on Himmelsdorf. Unfortunately, it was a loss, but you can't win them all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.